Hey guys, how are you? I'm here. It's been a couple of weeks, been more than a couple of weeks. My name's Lisa, also known as Fiber Nymph. Welcome to my channel. If you are new here, this is not going to be a normal episode. If you are a return viewer, then you know why. I just recently had hip replacement surgery. Look, spoiler alert, I survived. And so it's been a while. I'm 2 weeks post-op. Tomorrow will be actually the 2 week mark. Things are going great. Surgery went great. I'm doing really well. At least that's what everybody keeps telling me. I'm trying to believe them. Part of my brain is like, okay, then let's move this along. I should be able to do more now. But I'm still very much in recovery mode. Anyway, I'm actually sitting here with an ice pack on my thigh because I just did my physical therapy exercises right before I sat down to record and got an ice. So anyway, yeah, I just wanted to chat with you. This is going to be kind of a chatty video. I'm going to talk to you about what I have been doing during my recovery, my recuperation. And some of that is fiber arts related, some of it's not, so hopefully you'll enjoy that. I will tell you a little bit more about the whole, ordeal and my recovery so far. I'll put that at the end because I know that's not going to be everybody's cup of tea. That'll be the life stuff that we talk about. But anyway, again, I feel like I am doing pretty well for 2 weeks. What I have noticed, I have like one day where I'm like, yes, I feel really good. And then by the next day, I'm like, I feel like crap. And that's probably because on those days that I feel really good, I overdo it. Friday was an overdo it day because I felt really good. And yesterday I felt horrible. And this morning I'm like, oh my God, I still feel horrible. And then once I did my exercises for the first time, I felt much better. So go figure. But that's the way it's going. I just want to let you know, in addition to this not being a normal regular episode, there are not going to be regular show notes. I haven't been keeping up with stuff like that, like updating my project pages and everything. And again, a lot of the things I'm going to show you aren't things that would have project pages. So you can check out my Ravelry project pages for some things. My favorite day website, which is my project blog, that'll have some information. That stuff will generally be linked below. My shop will be linked below, all of that. But I'm going to assume that you will give me grace for not doing like timestamps and specific links to projects for this episode. We'll get back to that eventually though. So speaking of the shop, obviously, I'm not working yet, other than to ship orders. I have had orders come in, and that's not a problem for me at this point. I'm definitely able to get around enough with the help of my trusty cane to get around, and I can ship orders. Well, Bill takes them up to the post office for me, but I can get them ready. I don't think I ever got to tell you, unless you're on my mailing list, then my email list, newsletter, that's the word, you would know I am doing free shipping all through the month of March. So you still have a little over a week to take advantage of that, just because I knew it was going to be, somewhat of a delay to get orders out, probably. I just didn't know how much. So all US orders are free shipping. All international orders, Canada and any other international, if you order 2 or more items, then the shipping is $5 off what it usually is, my flat rate shipping. So there's that. If that helps you at all or has any interest. There's a lot of stuff in the shop, so check that out. I like doing the free shipping occasionally because that way you don't have to meet that $50 minimum, and if you only want one little thing, then you can get that without having to pay the shipping. I do have other things that I dyed and had hoped to have ready to put in the shop after my surgery. Some of it I never had the time to reskein, so obviously that's not going in the shop. Some of it is in my office in bins. It's ready to go into the shop. I just haven't had time to put it in. Mostly that is larger spinning sets and serendipity project sets for yarn. That stuff will be going in probably in April at this point, like the beginning of April. And that really is neither here nor there probably for the free shipping, because those are all over $50 anyway. So, okay. See, this is what's going on with my brain. You're doing so well. Great, I should be working. Body, no, I still hurt and I need to recover. Please settle down. Okay. So I think that's everything I wanted to tell you up front. I wasn't even going to write show notes, and I sat here and I tried to record this a couple of times, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I need some sort of notes. So here they are, handwritten on the back of a Far Side page-a-day calendar. Page. Oh, not wearing any knitwear for you today, but I am wearing one of my favorite fun t-shirts that says, I fully intend to haunt people when I die. I have a list. I know you can't see that last bit, but I don't have it in me to stand up to show it to you. Just trust me, it says that. And I love this t-shirt so very much. Okay, so how are you doing? Doing good? I hope you're doing well. If I seem a little spacey today, it's just because I'm not used to talking a lot at this point. Like, Bill's here. I talked to Bill, but otherwise, like on nice days, he's been outside. You may actually be able to hear ambient noise of him running the tractor back and forth because he's cutting up tons of firewood right now. We've had a lot of weather that has resulted in downed trees, mainly at our neighbor's house, and he takes care of the trees for her. Some here though, and so if it's nice out, he's taking advantage of the nice weather, and I'm just sitting here in the house trying to behave and not let the cats push me down the steps. So anyway, I have not taken any pain medication today. So if I'm fuzzy, it's just me being fuzzy. It's not medication oriented. That's actually been a really good thing. I have noticed in the last several days that I'm taking way less of the good pain medication, like sometimes only like a half of the tablet, like once a day or twice a day. So, and my PT, my physical therapist, keeps telling me, you're doing really well, like stay ahead of the pain. And I'm like, I'm good, it's good, everything's good. Anyway. Okay, I'm drinking very lukewarm coffee, in case you're wondering. In one of my cups, and I cannot remember the potter. Was it like Annie the Potter or something? I know she was always at like Rhinebeck in Maryland. I feel like Annie isn't the right word. I can't read it on the bottom either. I know a bunch of you are probably yelling it, but anyway, this is my cup that I use. I don't use it as often as I used to, but I pulled it out today. So anyway, all right, let's talk about some of the things I've been working on. I don't think I mentioned this already. Like I said, I've tried to record this a couple of times. I did record a video about 2 days before my surgery. I tried to record an episode. Well, actually, I did record an episode, but then I never had time to edit it and upload it. And at this point, it's mostly old news anyway, so it's not going to be uploaded. But I'm going to end up repeating some things that I know I probably said in there, and then I'm going to feel like I've already told you. So again, a little bit of grace for me knowing what I'm talking about today would be great. In that video that you will never see, I did mention that I had gathered together a bunch of stuff in anticipation of my recovery period, and I wanted to have options. I knew I was not going to touch all of it, but I'm like looking straight across. Behind you is where our treadmill is, and sitting on the treadmill is a big wicker basket full of project bags that had various and sundry, in-process things, new projects. My bag with my cross stitches in there, have not touched that. I don't remember what all else is in there, but that is like the fiber artsy bag. And then I had another basket that I had pulled out 4 braids of fiber because I wanted to start a combo spin. So I had that. And then I had a basket full of books and art related books. And I had that sitting here as well. And then all of my regular art stuff, like my painting stuff and drawing stuff, is already over in the dining room, which is that direction, which is where I often sit for my videos. Oh, we're in my living room. I don't think I said that. I'll get back to that in a minute. But anyway, I had all of the stuff set up. And so then the first, not the day I got home from surgery, but like the next day, my first day of recovery, I asked Bill to like okay, can you put my spinning stuff in the living room? And can you put the knitting stuff, actually the knitting basket just stayed there. And can you put the books in the bedroom? And, and so I wanted to have stations set up around the house so that I had a reason to get up and move around, because they really did want me to be up and moving and walking a little bit, at least every hour. And I thought, well, that would be a really good reason for me to do that, because at that point, especially, there was no one position that I could be in for very long that was comfortable. I'm a little better now, but at that point, it was like I could sit somewhere for maybe 15, 20 minutes max and be like, I'm so uncomfortable, I need to get up and move. And so then I would move to like my next station. So we're in my living room station right now, which was actually not originally going to be where I was going to spin. I was going to spin in the dining room. I tried that one day and it did not work super well for me how I had it set up. So I moved it, had Bill help me move it here to the living room, and it's worked super well. My e-spinner, again, is also behind you on the piano bench, which you can't see, but that's been perfect. And I'm sitting in this, you can see it's a rocking chair that usually is out on our front porch, but I needed to have chairs with arms, and we don't have any. Like our dining room chairs, when I bought that dining room set, because that was the one from my house, I didn't get any of the chairs with arms because I don't like those because they bump into things. So I didn't buy those. So I ended up having to borrow back a chair from my daughter that was from Bill's set of furniture that she now has, that has arms. And so that's over there. So I have a way to get up and down. And honestly, I was like, I probably don't need arms to get up and down. I absolutely needed arms to get up and down. Super helpful. I was wrong on that point. But anyway, that's why you see those two chairs right there. Those are two of our dining room chairs that I had to move from the living room, or from the dining room, when we were getting ready, a couple days before surgery, to make room for me to be able to get the walker in and around the table, and to have the chair with arms. Anyway, so this chair is just sitting here in the middle of the living room. So this is a view that you don't usually see. There's my plant table, my poor plants. Oh my gosh, I can't wait till I am able to like actually get around better, and I need to repot a bunch of stuff there. Some of them are like, help. But they're surviving. And then that is a secretary that was my grandparents, the grandmother who crocheted the blanket that a legacy colorway was inspired by. That was their piece of furniture, and I always loved it. And then when my mom moved to Florida, I inherited that. So I have that there. I wish it was in a better place where I could actually use it more regularly. It mostly holds the DVDs. There are some books up there, and then the drawers have like games and puzzles in them, and there's a bunch of DVDs and puzzles and games up there too. Anyway, but yeah, this is this area of the house that you don't usually see. It's nice and sunny right now though, and it's very light because we have the two skylights in the house here. So yay, light. Impromptu tour. Alrighty. So what have I been working on? I've told you about my little stations and everything. So let's start with, I will start with this project. Because this I took with me to the hospital thinking, oh, maybe I'll have time to like work on this at some point. Absolutely had no time to work on anything at the hospital. They were extremely efficient. I walked in the door, the guy at the front desk was like, you here for a procedure? Absolutely. He took me right back, and nothing else happened except for everything going up to my procedure. But I have sock. I had cast this sock on probably a couple days before my surgery, thinking, again, I would have it to take to the hospital. Maybe I'd have some downtime before my surgery. But yeah, I didn't. But this is the Wheel of the Trees colorway, which I really love this colorway. I can't remember if I had it in the shop much. And I also don't remember if this was maybe a special colorway I did for a reason at one point in time. It's an older colorway, but I really like it. It was meant to represent the different seasons. So you have like this brown stripe represents what the trees look like in winter. So when it's just, just the trees bare. Actually, I think these are backwards. Yeah, I am knitting it backwards. So let's go in this direction. So this is the trees in the winter, and then like in spring you get that light green haze, and then you get some pink on the flowering trees, and then in summer everything's nice and green, and then in the fall you get the nice orange and yellow gold leaves, and then you circle back. So Wheel of the Trees. This is on my bedazzled base. This was actually a project bag that I had in that basket in my bedroom that I talked about whenever I went through like leftovers earlier this year, and I was organizing my leftover yarns, and I had pulled out, I don't remember how many, maybe 6 or 7 skeins of self-striping that I knew I had enough to make shorty socks with, and I paired them up with little leftover balls that I could use for like heels and toes. And this was one that was a last minute one that I had found, and this was almost a full skein. That's why I did not do shorty socks. This is my normal size sock I make. And yeah, I didn't even use any contrast. This is just the whole skein. So that's one of those bags. So I felt kind of good using that. So I have the first, I did actually I put this in, but this is some of my Linnaeus, a leftover, which doesn't have sparkle, and I could have used it, but I didn't. So anyway, but I did start the second sock this morning, and they're not going to be matchy-matchy because I started at a different spot, but I don't care. So this is just my usual 60 stitch sock, US 1 needles, 2x1 rib with a slip stitch, heel flap, and gusset. So yeah, I did not work on it at all at the hospital. I started picking it up probably like the next day after my surgery. But honestly, I only knit probably a couple rounds at a time because I just didn't have the energy or the focus to be able to do much more than that. But now I've made some good progress. Oh, speaking of socks, I did finish a legacy socks that you saw in the last episode. I did talk about them in the lost episode that you're never going to see, but I think I've mentioned by now. Oh my gosh, I'm sorry guys. Anyway, that episode that I recorded that isn't going up, but here's a picture of them. They are done. I haven't worn them yet. I don't know if I'll wear them this year. It might be fall before I wear them, but I'm really happy that they're done. It was so crazy that it took over a year for me to finish a pair of socks, but they are done now, so yay for that. And yay for this pair of socks on the go. So I've worked on that. Okay, totally out of order because this isn't really fiber related, but it's sitting here, so I'm going to show you. One of the things I pulled out to work on was my button project. Remember the button project? If you've been around, you'll remember. If I have a picture of the first 2 hoops, I'll put them in here. I'm not sure if I do at this point or not. But anyway, I did the one hoop that had black fabric with black and gray buttons and filled in with black and gray beads. And then the other one was a hoop with white fabric and then like white and clear buttons and light colored buttons, cream, and those kind of beads. And then I wanted to do a rainbow hoop that I could hang in the middle with a rainbow of buttons in it. And you guys helped me decide last year what color fabric I was going to put that on. And we decided on a, kind of a grayish blue, like a storm sky blue. So I had this all ready to go. I had everything in this little basket here. And I did start it. This, I think, was actually the first thing I worked on after my surgery once I was home that first day. And so I did start sewing the buttons on. I do not love this. I'm not sure why. I think part of it is that I don't have a wide range of the rainbow colors. Like all of my purples that I have are these light lavendery kind of purples. I don't have any really dark, nice purples. And And I don't have a lot of variation in size of buttons. Like I had a couple of these little tiny yellows. Yeah, there's just not a lot. Not a lot. Could I buy buttons specifically to do this? Sure, I could. But that would totally, I'm using one of my grandmother's good china bowls, but you know what? We don't use them for much of anything else, so I like to use them for crafty things occasionally. They make me happy. But these are my buttons, and I don't know. I'm not sure if it's because of how I'm choosing to put them on. Like I'm just sort of randomly putting them on. Like there's no pattern. Would I like it better maybe if I was kind of doing stripes of the rainbow colors? Possibly. Or I could even do kind of like a rainbow, like a purple and a green, no, blue, green, you know, like I could do them that way. I could do that, but then that really wouldn't line up with how the first two hoops were. I don't know. I'm not really loving this, so I haven't put any more time into it. This is all I did that first day I sat and worked on it. I am using like colors of thread, although for some reason on the pink I used red. Maybe I don't have, I'm sure I have pink thread somewhere. I don't know. What do you think? If you have any ideas, let me know what you think I could do to I have no problems cutting all these buttons off of here if I need to. Like that will not bother me at all. So anyway, that is the button project and how far it has gotten, which obviously isn't very far because I'm not super excited about it. But that's okay. I need to take another drink. All right, the other fiber projects that I've been working on. I have worked on my sweater, which you did see. Actually, that was my screenshot for the last episode. But I have now separated out the sleeves. Let's see. So here we are. Oh, see, that's the nice thing about rocking chair. We'll just rock back and you can see that. So I have my sleeves on waste yarn, and I've done, I don't know, probably about 3 inches, 4 inches, somewhere around there in the body. So it's just going round and round and round. And I'm now coming really close to the end of my first skein. Shortly, I think I'm going to start to alternate maybe. Mainly because to integrate this one, the center yarn is this really dark color, and I don't want a hard break there. I mean, obviously I have hard breaks in the sweater so far, so I guess it really wouldn't be a big deal, but my gut is telling me to do some alternating, at least for a few rounds, to get into that. Yeah, there's lots of hard breaks, aren't there? I shouldn't worry about it, but I think that's how I'm gonna do it. So anyway, that's coming along. This was a combo spin that I did, I think 2022, 23, around there. I know I said it last time, that I used multiple braids of fiber. I spun it specifically for this sweater, which I should tell you, this is the DRK Everyday Sweater by Andrea Mowry. Dre Renee Knits, and I'm really enjoying it. I do want to knit this onto 2 needles again soon so that I can try it on now that I have some of the body knit, just to see how it's gonna fit. It's going great. And this is one of the projects I tend to work on at night if Bill and I are watching TV, because it's easy and again, just round and round and around. Don't have to think about it much, which is good because I don't have a lot of brain power left at that point in the day. So that has been, oh no, don't get caught in the zipper. That's been one thing I've worked on in the evening. And then the other thing, if I'm not feeling that, I'm working on this crazy project that I showed you, that I started doing these crocheted rectangles. Remember? I said, oh, I don't know how many of these I'll do. Maybe I won't really do that many. Well, this is what I've got so far. I don't know how many. There's over 20 for sure. And this is just me holding 2 fingering weight leftovers together. I'm using an F hook. I did not tell you what needle sizes I'm using on that sweater. That is in the project pages if you look. I think it's a 5 right now for the body. Anyway, sorry. Okay. Yeah, F hook, 2 fingering weights, and I am doing these like according to color. Now some of them, like this one, is pretty much cohesive, like both colors were either the same color or very, very close. And then others, you know, as it runs out, like I swap another one in that isn't quite, but it's in the same family. This one, like these were 2 totally different colors. Oh, even this first row was very different. But I'm just having fun with it. And this one, I'm not sure I love this, but I do have, so this, it was a green, and then the other one was like a white yarn that had a lot of different green colored speckles in it. And so I thought, oh, well, this will be kind of cool. And I do like it, but I don't love it as much as the other ones, but I do have a lot of white yarns that are speckled in different colors that I think I will do this with a color that will coordinate with them. And then whatever this ends up being, because I don't really know what it's going to end up being yet, I'll just kind of randomly place those, you know, visual interest. So, yeah, that's what we've got. I'm going to count them just for the heck of it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So that's 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. I keep switching which bag of colors I'm using just to keep it interesting. So 16, right? 16. This one's like absolutely crazy. Look at all those greens in there. So weird. 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27. 27 random rectangles that will someday grow up to be something. I don't think I'm going to end up with enough of them to make like a full-on throw or body-sized blanket per se, but we'll see. I don't know. What was I going to say about that? Oh, I'm doing this using the block stitch. That is the stitch that the Fairweather cowl that I make all the time, crocheted cowl, uses to make that cowl. So this is just giving me another chance to use that stitch that I really, really enjoy doing. So yeah, we'll see what that becomes. Who knows? It's just an enjoyable thing for me to work on right now. Fiber-wise, the only other thing I've been working on is a combo spin. I did pull out 4 braids of fiber. I'll put a picture in here. And this was also something I did, I think, my first full day after surgery. I sat at my dining room table and I divided those 4 braids up. So what you saw there, I had 2 braids of my pollinator pie colorway. One of them was on mixed BFL, one was on Polworth silk. And then I had 2 other colorways. One was called Doubletree, which is actually a colorway I've dyed. Doubletree was on mixed BFL. And then the other one was called Vineyard, and I think that was just a colorway I did for shows last year. That was on some gray BFL. That is not a regular fiber for me to dye, but I did have some in the shop and at the show last year. So anyway, I had those 4 braids. I thought they all looked pretty well together. And what I did was all 4 of them, I took them and I opened them up completely, you know, unbraided them, and then I pulled them apart in half, and then each half I pulled apart again. So I had 4 lengths. My length was cut into 4 pieces, and then each of those 4 lengths I divided up lengthwise into 4 strips. So each braid yielded 16 strips. Okay, following me? And here is a picture of my walker holding my 4 different braids of 16 strips each. So what I ended up doing then was taking them and pulling 1 strip from each braid and making these little mini bundles. So here we have, this is one of the this is the Polworth silk. This is the mixed BFL. Those are the pollinator pie. This one is vineyard on the gray BFL. And then this one is DoubleTree on mixed BFL. So I ended up with 16 little fiber bundles, right? Here is a picture of the fiber bundles. I know I have a couple pictures of those. So my plan is to use 4 fiber bundles per bobbin for 4 bobbins of singles. And I've finished my first one. So this is my first bobbin of singles. So that had 16 strips, or 4 of those little mini bundles. And I am doing these in a particular order, so it's not a random combo spin. So I'm starting with one of the pollinator pies. It doesn't matter to me which one. So I'm doing pollinator pie, and then vineyard, and then the other pollinator pie, and then DoubleTree. And that is the order that I've done all 4 of those little bundles on here. And I'm going to do that exact same thing for the second bobbin, which will be 4 more mini bundles, 16 strips. Then when I do the other 2, I'm going to change it up, and I'm going to do that in the opposite order. I'm going to start with DoubleTree, and then a pollinator pie, and then vineyard, and a pollinator pie. And then that'll be 2 bobbins in that way. So then when I ply them, they're going to be 2 plies. I'm going to ply 1 in the first order and 1 in the second order sequence together. So the colors will get mixed up in that way. Does that make sense? I hope you followed that. It makes sense in my brain. Anyway, I am spinning on my e-spinner, my Ashford e-spinner 3. It's been fabulous. I'm so happy to have it. It's been a really good addition to my tools, especially for now, because there's no way I could be treadling right now, even though it won't bother my hip in the same way as it was before. Definitely not there yet. Someday I will get back to spinning on my Ashford Traveler, but today is not that day. Okay, so I think that's everything crafty-wise with fiber arts that I've been doing. I will tell you, I have to adjust a minute here. Hang on. Actually, you know what? I'm going to pause, and I'm going to get up and walk a little bit. I'll be back. Okay, I'm back. It's actually been a little over an hour. I was not walking around all that time, but I realized when I got up before that it was almost noon, and Bill had asked me to let him know whenever it was lunchtime, so I went out onto the deck and waved. So he came in and had lunch, and we sat for a while. So here I am. I'm back. The light's probably very different. I don't know. But anyway, I believe I left off where I was going to talk to you about non-fiber arts crafts that I've been doing. And that's mainly just been my painting and drawing that you guys know I really enjoy doing. A few things I've focused on. I really enjoy doing Zentangle kind of stuff, and one of the content creators that I follow a lot, her name is Lizzie Phoenix. If you were part of the Artistic License Club this year, you probably heard me mention her or saw me mention her as a reference in some of your materials that you got from me. But anyway, one of the things that she does, and it was probably one of the first things that I watched her do when I found her YouTube channel, was she has this book. It kind of looks like this, except it's bigger, and I think it has a different color cover. It's this handmade paper, cotton rag paper. I don't know where it's made. It's from Lumley is the company. The one she had, she'd gotten, a friend had given her, and from like they found it at a museum gift shop or something. And so she had that. And she said, I don't really know where you can get them. And then finally, she realized, I think she's the one who said it. Anyway, I got this one, this one from Blick. art supplies online. Sorry, I need to take a drink. I've moved on to tea now. Anyway, so I got this one at Blick just because I wanted to try it. I wanted to try the handmade paper. It's very textural. I don't know if you can see. Yeah, you can kind of see on the shot. It's very, very textural. So it does add some, you know, interest while you're trying to paint. But the thing that she was doing with her book like this is she was using it to do Zentangles, like single color Zentangle paintings with a particular art paint palette that she had, and I don't remember what one she used, but I thought that was a really cool idea. And I have this one palette here. Oh, there's that. I was looking for that piece of cardboard a few minutes ago. Anyway, this is a palette that I have. I don't want to dump everything out. This is what the box looks like, but it's a palette of 48 colors. There they are. It's Kuretake Gansai Tambi. I don't know what all those words mean. I believe the Gansai part is particular to the type of paint. It's a very highly pigmented paint. I think that's what that means based on things that I've heard other people say. I don't know that for sure. Anyway, so I had this one and I thought, oh, that would be so much fun to do that kind of a project if I had that book. Now, obviously, I could have done it with any paper, but I wanted the book. And so whenever I found out that Blick carried at least a smaller version of those, I grabbed one. And it's really funny because when it's sitting on the table with this gold shiny cover, it kind of looks like some sort of mysterious book of sacred texts or something, which it's not. But anyway, so that's what I started doing with this. And I'll show you the ones I've done so far. I'm doing them portrait wise, not that it really matters, but I'm just using one color at a time. And because I am me, I am writing down after it dries what color I used. So that was Rose Madder Deep. But anyway, I'm not going to read the names, but you know, some of them I do with shapes, some of them I just do with wavy lines. These first ones I did with a round 4, size 4 brush. And obviously this one, like the yellow one, I definitely was flattening the brush out more. And the green one, I was working much more with it, like with the tip, because you can see how much more narrow it is, but it was still a 4. Round brushes are what I use mostly. This is swirly. I'm not super good with curves, like curvy designs. I have a hard time keeping my spaces even, but I keep trying. And then because this paper is so textured, I mean, that adds a little bit more of a challenge, but it's fun and it makes it all look a little bit different. And I think it was this one, this brown one here. Actually, I think this is technically called Indian Red. I went down to a size 2 round. So it was easier to get those finer lines even when I'm holding the brush more flat. And then this is a different yellow than that first one. What was the first yellow? Aurelian. This was cadmium yellow. Did triangles, kind of like slices of cheese. So I've just been having a lot of fun with that. I've been trying to do one a day since I got this book. I don't think I've done it every day. I haven't done one yet today. But anyway, that's been fun. And then along the same line as Zentangles, another content creator online that I know I talked about in the club was Huart, Huart. And he, at least I'm assuming it's a he, based on just circumstantial factors. I've never seen the person's face. I don't know. They, well, go with they. They do a lot of like abstract color painting on paper with different colors, and then they Zentangle shapes over the shapes found in the colors, which is very cool. I've done that too. It's a lot of fun. But they also had videos up on their channel just showing different Zentangle motifs that you can use. And I thought, oh, that would be really fun to recreate as well. So I've been doing those, and a couple of them were like 24. So I just, I did a block of 24 squares. 24? 1, 2, no, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 20, not 24. That's 20. I don't know. I guess this one's 20 also. But anyway, I was trying to just recreate those based off of the videos. This one I haven't finished. I was just using the paper that I had on hand. Anyway, it's an interesting way to learn new little motifs that you can use when you're doing the Zentangle-y stuff this way, not so much painting the single color thing. But I do this a lot. I don't use watercolor paper. I have a mixed media notebook that I use, and I almost always have it just a black ink line drawing kind of Zentangle thing going on. I don't have it right here. If I remember, I'll try to take a picture and put it here, but I can't promise that's going to happen this time. Anyway, you know what? Hang on. I'll just go get it. I can walk. I was just working on it while Bill ate lunch. Hold on. Okay, hey, I'm back. See, that was so much easier than me trying to remember to take a picture. Anyway, this is the one I'm working on now. I just do a bunch of wavy lines and crisscross them, and then I end up with all these spaces that I fill, and I fill them with random stuff. Like this was one of the ones that I did do on this card. That's that. But most of these are just sort of my own thing. And honestly, a lot of them are similar from Zentangle artist to artist, because I think a lot of people just come up with the same ideas. Plus, if you see somebody else do it, then you incorporate it into your art, and, whatever. Here's another one that I did one time. I love to do these kind because it's not like a high pressure thing. It's nothing I need to finish on in a certain time frame. That's kind of cool. That was one I painted and then painted flowers over. And I usually leave this like sitting out in my office. Here's one. That was with a finer pen. That was so much fun though. I love doing these. Yeah, so it's just, I don't know. There's a lot of different stuff in here. So that's some of the drawing that I've done. And then the other thing I did that I've wanted to do for a while is I have this smaller palette of paints. It's just these 12 little colors. I believe this was a Graby set that I got probably off of TikTok Shop, definitely during the pandemic. And I really like these colors. I have another Graby set that has like, I don't know, probably 90 some colors in it. They're teeny, they're like little 8th pan palette. And I don't use it very often. The colors are not overly pigmented, and I never really got into it. I should probably pull it out now and play with it some more. But anyway, this one, I think this was supposed to be a fall colored palette, and it doesn't really have a name anywhere. Floral colors. I'm sorry, not fall. 12 half pan floral colors. Okay, that makes more sense. But I really love these colors, and so I've painted with them a lot. But I always wanted to do an experiment, but since it's a small color palette, of seeing what colors you could get if you blended them. And I wanted to do it so that I could blend each color with each of the other 11 colors and see how they worked out. And I've tried that in different ways, and it never quite worked out, and it wasn't very orderly. So I decided instead to do this chart. So I have this chart, so I have all 12 colors going this way, all 12 colors going this way. And so every place, like here's Prussian blue and Prussian blue. So that's Prussian blue. So if you go down this diagonal where I have the darker colored outline, excuse me, that is just all 12 of the colors unblended with each other. They're just as they are in the palette. And so then as I worked my way across, I started with Prussian blue and I blended them with each of the other 11 colors. So here it is blended with royal purple, and then with fuchsia, and then with apricot, and then with olive green, yeah, and so on. I'm not going to read them all. So then as I kept going down, like I had royal purple, but I had already blended royal purple and Prussian blue. That's what that was. So rather than do that again, I decided to take the brush, and I was actually using a kind of a rectangular brush for this project. And I did one stripe of the royal purple and then one stripe of the Prussian blue, and I made it so that the ink or the paint was wet enough to get an idea of how they would blend. If you were painting and had some of this and then had the other next to it, how it might blend together. And that's what I was trying to do. So that's what this whole bottom half is, because obviously as you work across up here, you've already done some of the combinations. So then I have the blending combinations. Does that make sense? I hope you understand what I'm saying there. But this was a really fun project. The blend part of it worked better for some than for others. But it was really cool to see what colors you got with the two blends. Like Prussian blue and blush pink gave me this color here. It's like, and the colors aren't coming across super well on here. What's another one that was really, oh, here. Blush pink and emerald green, like right there. That's such a neat color. Some of them just surprised me the way they turned out. Because obviously not all of the colors in here are primaries. You kind of know what you're going to get when you're blending primary colors. We all learned that, red and yellow makes orange, and, and then how you get secondary colors, and orange is a secondary color, and then, anyway. You kind of know the basics, but until you get to really sit and play with it, it can be surprising what you get. So now my next step for this is I want to take some of the ones that I really like from these blends, and I want to try to recreate them to see how true my blending actually was, and what variations I can get on that, and just maybe not in a chart like this, but like just on a piece of watercolor paper, play with it. So anyway, been doing that, and I guess that's probably mostly it. I can't think of anything else I've been spending a lot of time on. As I promised earlier, I am going to insert, I think, the Hog Island fiber segment here, if I haven't already inserted it somewhere else. I know this seems random since we already talked about fiber, but because it was from a different video that never actually came to be, I'm just going to put it here at the end. And then after that segment, we will get into life stuff. So I'll see you in a little bit. These are 3 skeins of yarn that I spun out of some Ross Farm Hog Island fiber. Now, I didn't bring the book with me, but the Fleece and Fiber Source Book by Deb Robeson and Carol Acarius does have a nice write-up about Hog Island sheep. They are very rare, and as I recall, the write-up explaining, this is just my summation of it, there are really not enough Hog Island sheep around to be able to come up with specifics about average staple length and the characteristics of these sheep, because there's so few of them. So Amy from Ross Farm did have a nice flock of Hog Island. Unfortunately, I believe most of those have been lost in her recent fire. However, I purchased this spinning set, some time ago now. I'm going to say it was probably even pre-pandemic, maybe. I don't remember offhand. But I've had it in my stash, and I wanted to try it out just as a way to, be meditative and think about Amy and send her good vibes. So each of the fiber bumps was about 50 grams. And it was these three colors. So you've got this nice whitish, natural white, and then this is a, oatmeal kind of color, and then this brown. Those were the three colors in the set. And I did spin these on my e-spinner, and it was an interesting spin. I'm gonna give just a little thought on farm fiber versus commercial fiber. I primarily spin commercial fiber. And by that I mean fiber that has been processed in a larger commercial kind of mill. I believe the fiber that you get commercially tends to be processed more than most farm fibers. I believe most farm fibers probably go to smaller mills that maybe do minimal processing, because they're not, my understanding of so the fiber I get from my fiber supplier is a commercial mill. And it's my understanding that, let's say I buy a 23-pound bump of BFL. Okay, that BFL that I'm getting in those 23 pounds is not all from the same sheep. It's not even all from the same flock. Well, obviously it's not from the same sheep. That would be a massive sheep. But it's not all from the same flock. It's probably from many, many flocks. And it's all put together and processed together. Okay, which that gives you a more evened out resulting fiber. Now, obviously they're not putting together low quality fiber with really high quality fiber. I mean, I know they do grade fibers and put like fibers together, but it's still a blend of fiber of that breed, that is coming possibly from a lot of different sources and being put together for that final milled fiber product. Okay, whereas farm yarn, typically, if you are a farmer, a shepherd who has a flock of, say, Hog Island sheep, you're going to take the fleece from your sheep and you're going to send it to a mill who is going to process your sheep's fleece only together with your sheep's fleece. So in that way, the resulting fiber is essentially a direct reflection of only your sheep. Does that make sense? That is my understanding of how this works. I am not an expert. I am not a farmer, but my understanding of it from the years that I've read about this and talked to people, that's how I understand it to work. So all of that just sort of as a little bit of background about fiber in general. So these, obviously, this fiber came from Amy's sheep, period. It's not blended with anybody else's fiber. What I found to be interesting, okay, and what I can tell you that I have learned about Hog Island is it's a short staple fleece. It's not necessarily going to be close to skin soft, although I will tell you all three of these colors have a very different feel to them. And that was interesting and eye-opening, although I have had that experience with other breeds, Shetland in particular. Shetland comes in a bunch of different colors and patterns of colors, and I have spun a variety of them, and they do tend to vary, and I'm not sure what that's attributable to. I don't know if that has to do with the color itself, if it has to do with the individual sheep, if it has to do with conditions that the sheep were raised in or stress that they were. I don't know. I just know that that's not uncommon for different colors of fleece of the same breed to spin differently and to have different, characteristics. So I started with the white. This was my least favorite to spin, only because it had a ton of veg matter in it. And you can still see some in here, like these little flecks. Ordinarily, if I have fiber that has veg matter in it, I try to go through each section of fiber before I start spinning it and pick it out, That's usually pretty reasonable to do. That was not possible to do with this. There was so much in it. Now, that's another thing that can vary from, sheep to sheep and farmer to farmer. Sometimes farmers jacket their sheep, and that helps to keep, the grass and hay and whatever that they're in outside from going into the fiber, into their fleece. I don't have any idea if Amy does that with her sheep or not. I did not contact her. I think maybe I mentioned in the part that I cut out from last time that I thought, oh, well, maybe I should talk to her and get some insights on her sheep. And I thought about that again this week. And then shortly after, like an hour or two after, I saw a post from her on social media saying, guys, I am just spent. I have nothing else to give. I can't talk to people. I'm not answering emails. I'm like, fair. She's got a lot going on right now that she's dealing with. So I did not reach out to her for that reason. So I'm only speculating about what's going on. I do not surmise that these sheep were jacketed. I don't think so, based on the excessive amount of veg matter that was in this fleece. That's just my guess. It was just not a super pleasant spin between the veg matter and just the fact that the fiber itself, it almost felt downy as opposed to most fibers that you can really see the long strands. Now, I said it is a short staple fiber, but even with the short staple, it just felt like a very spongy kind of downy fiber, especially this color. But I got through it. I did lose about 5 or 6 grams of fiber in this spin. This is a 45 gram skein left from it, which, you do that. You lose some fiber as you spin. All right, so I went from that to this one. Now, this one had less veg matter in it, so that was a plus from the very beginning. And it was somewhat easier to work with. Like, as I was opening up the top, I'm going to say it was top as opposed to roving. I don't even know that for sure. Like, when I tried to do that with this, it was very hard to open up and get to, pre-draft. This was much easier in that respect, and it did draft a little bit better. I did spin this for the most part in my default worsted spin. I did try woolen spinning at different points, and sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't, but it was just hard. Again, because of the short staple length and the kind of squishy, downy texture that it really had. But this one did spin up a little easier. I wasn't nearly as frustrated trying to spin this one. So that was good. And this one I didn't lose nearly as much. I lost maybe a gram or 2. And then lastly, I came to the dark brown. And this was, out of the 3 of them, the easiest one to spin for me. Now, take into consideration that as I spun the other 2, I'm sure I was learning how to work with this fiber as well. So you got to take that into consideration. But this one had the least amount of veg matter in it, and it was the easiest to open up and work with. And it spun, I feel like, out of the 3 of these, the most consistently. Yeah. So there's that. And this one also, I did not lose very much. This is right around 50 grams, I believe. So I finished these, and then I 2-plied them. I did a bobbin of each. I had split the bump in half, so I had 2 25-gram pieces of fiber, spun them separately, plied them together. So these are all 2-plies. And I thought, okay, I need to soak these just to finish this experiment and make sure, well, I mean, you have to soak it anyway, but I just wanted to see how it was going to change. That was probably the most surprising part of all of this to me. After I soaked this and hung it up to dry, it went boing. It became so full and fluffy. It reminds me of that part of, oh God, what's the movie with the guy and the girls? Oh my gosh, it's a cartoon, and the one little girl did, it's so fluffy. I know you guys know what I'm talking about, or else I'm hallucinating. I don't know, man. But Yeah, it was amazing. They are so springy. They're soft and springy. And honestly, when I finished these, even though these darker two spun better than the first one, I'm like, I don't know what I'm ever going to use this for, because I can't imagine trying to make, you know, anything that's going to touch my skin out of it. And I would stick by that. I think this is a little more prickly for me than I could handle next to skin. But maybe a hat or something I could do, or some mitts. I don't know. But I hadn't even really considered that. But once I soaked them and they boinged up and sprung up as they dried, I thought, oh my gosh, this is so much better. So it was an interesting spinning experience. Again, I mainly spin commercially prepped yarns or fibers. That's my happy place, just because of this consistency, honestly. That's what I dye. If you ever buy fiber from me, it is fiber that was commercially produced or processed. So anyway, but this was a good experience. It's always a fun experience to spin a new to me fiber, and the fact that it was some very rare Hog Island fiber from somebody's flock who I knew, that made it extra special, and I'm happy to have had that experience. So I hope that was informative in some way. Yeah, so that was my spinning experience with that. Okay, so hopefully that worked right. I don't know, we'll see. But yeah, so let's just talk about life stuff. I'll tell you a little bit about this whole hip adventure that I have been on. It's been a journey. So Monday, 2 weeks ago, like 2 weeks ago from tomorrow, the 9th, that was when I had my surgery. And if you watched videos leading up to this since January, when I first learned that I was going to have surgery, you know that I was very anxious. Not so much about the surgery itself, but I was really anxious about the anesthesia. That was my biggest, I was just nervous about that. But anyway, leading up to surgery, I started watching YouTube videos, specifically YouTube videos about how hip replacement surgery is done. I told the physical therapist that the first day he came here, and he's like, why would you watch that? It's so brutal. Like, I know, but I wanted to know what was going on. Anyway, and so those were helpful in getting to know that, but they did nothing to alleviate my concerns over the anesthesia. And then I want to say it was maybe 2 or 3 days before my surgery, either the algorithm like gave me a video about anesthesia. I think that might have been it. It might have just been like a YouTube short. It was like a goofy little short, and it was about anesthesia, but it made me think, you know what? I bet you there's videos on here talking about general anesthesia and what to expect and how it works and all that. And I did. I found a bunch, and there were 2 in particular that were so helpful. Like, they answered my questions and they put me completely at ease. And I was, at that point, I was no longer nervous about my surgery. And it was so interesting because the one video said, you know, one of the things that most people, well, there are common concerns about anesthesia, right? A lot of people are concerned that they're not going to wake back up, which that was my big concern. And then he also said the other one that there is that they're going to be under, but they're still going to be able to feel and know what's going on. And I guess that does actually happen, but it's very, very, very rare, right? I didn't know that was a thing. And I'm like, great, now I have something else to be concerned about. But honestly, both of those videos that I watched that were really good put me at ease, and I was no longer worried. Even the morning of surgery, we got to the hospital. I slept great the night before my surgery. Like, I was not expecting to, but I had an excellent night's sleep. We got to the hospital. I got there, and once they got me back in the room and everything, and the guy took my blood pressure, he's like, wow. That's, you know, kind of normal. I'm like, yeah, I feel great. So it was actually a little high for me, but I didn't tell him that. It was definitely in the normal range. So anyway, I did not have any time to even think about things once we got to the hospital. My call time, my arrival time was 5:30 a.m. So obviously I was up fairly early because I needed to take a shower right before surgery. They gave me this Hibiclens soap that I was supposed to use for my 5 showers prior to surgery, and with the last one being the morning of surgery. So I was up very early, took a shower, got all debacterialized. And we got there, and honestly, like, Bill dropped me off at the front door, and by the time he came in, they were calling me back already. And there were maybe only 4 or 5 people in the short-term procedure area at that point in time. Everybody just moved things along. It was, I will say, overall, from the time I walked in the hospital that morning until we left the hospital later in the afternoon, it was the best medical experience I have ever had, ever. Everybody I came in contact with, nurses, administrative people, doctors, the anesthesiologists, anybody was so nice. Everybody was very kind. They listened to me. I got to ask questions. I did not feel like anybody was making me feel rushed. Even the doctors, as they came in, like, they were kind and answered my questions. The anesthesiologist was really funny because I was telling him about the videos that I watched, and I said about, I didn't even know the whole, like, being aware of your surgery while you're under was a things. And he's like, oh yeah, that hardly ever happens, but it is possible. But he was really funny. He's like, yeah, I've talked to patients and they all say, like, they're more afraid of me than they are the surgeon. It's just so weird that people have these misconceptions about anesthesia. Anyway, and then there was a nurse anesthetist. She was the one who actually gave me my drugs. She was a hoot. She came in and she's like, okay, I'm going to be your pilot for the day. I will take you anywhere you want to go, so just buckle up. Like, okay. And that was the other thing. Like, they literally started moving things along as soon as we got in there. The very first thing the guy did after I got dressed and got my gown on, he put a thigh-high compression stocking on my right leg. I'm like, oh. He's like, yeah, there will be one on your left leg when you come out of surgery. I said, and how long do I have to wear those? 6 weeks. I'm like, oh, that was not in my preparatory material. Nowhere did it say anything about that. I wish I would have had a heads up, because let me tell you, they're an ordeal. But anyway, yeah. And things just rolled, and I don't know what time it was by the time I finally got into surgery. All I know is whenever she said, okay, say your goodbyes, hugs and kisses, and Bill was so focused on, like, my bag that I had there, my tote bag that had stuff, and, like, do I need to take this with me? Can we leave it in the room? What can I do? Do I need to take this to the car? And I'm like, Bill, I'm leaving for surgery now. Come say goodbye to me. He's like, but I have to get your bag. And the lady's, like, wheeling me out the door. Oh, gosh, husband. Anyway, so we're going down the hall, and I'm talking to her, and finally I'm like, hey, because she told me that she would be starting to give me some medications in my IV as we're going to the OR. I'm like, hey, did you already give me any of those drugs? She's like, oh yeah. And I'm laughing. I'm like, that's why I'm talking so much. I have no recollection of being in the operating room. I mean, I've had other procedures and things where, like, you go in there and they're like, okay, count backwards. No counting backwards. Like, by the time we got into the operating room, I think I remember going in, but I was already just going down, and it was gentle, and I don't remember any of it. And the next thing I know, I was waking up in recovery. It was awesome. It was the best case scenario. So anyway, that was pretty cool. I think my surgery took maybe a little bit longer than they had anticipated. I don't know why. I don't think it was anything wrong. It just, did. It did definitely take me longer to come out from the anesthesia than they had said, because they had said about an hour for surgery, another hour for me to come out of anesthesia. It was definitely, I think, between an hour and a half and 2 hours. And I think the issue was my blood pressure, because my blood pressure was really low. I run low anyway, and I know at one point, because they once I was awake and I was back in the room and Bill was there, they wanted the PT people to come in so they could get me up and walking and everything, but they're like, oh, we need to bring your blood pressure up. They had already given me, like, a snack and some ginger ale, like, up in the recovery room, like the PACU. And then in the main room, like my regular room again, like they're like, well, here, let's give you something else to eat and drink. This could help. It had been like 88 over 56 or something. And after that, they took it, oh, now it's 80 over 58. And I'm like, yeah. And she's like, let's have something else to eat. And Bill asked for coffee. And I'm like, can I have coffee? Coffee would be awesome. So they got me some coffee. I was finally able to get up. And, you know, that's what they did. They take you around. They help you walk. They show you how to do different things. I was able to go up and down steps. They went through the routine of the exercises they're going to have me do, like at home, how I'm supposed to use the toilet. That was interesting. And then we came home. So I guess I would say we probably got home around 3 o'clock that afternoon. So again, a little later than had been anticipated, but I'm apparently slow getting anesthesia out of my system. And other than that, like, you know, that first day at home, you're just sort of trying to get your bearings. By the second day, the first full day I was home, the nurse was here, the PT guy was here, had an occupational therapist. I think she came the next day though. And the PT guy has come every other day, like 3 days a week now. Monday will be his last day. And then I have my 2-week follow-up on Wednesday. Things have really gone well, though. My exercises have gone really well. I will say that, like, the surgeon, when I first saw him and we decided, yes, I was going to have the surgery, he's like, you know, you'll be using a walker for a couple days, then you'll use a cane for probably a couple weeks, then you'll be fine. You'll probably be driving, but I swear he told me I would be driving by 2 weeks. I don't know what definitely not. Maybe he said 4 weeks. That seems more reasonable. And then I remember telling him, like, we have this motorcycle trip planned for mid-May. He's like, oh, you'll be good to go. It'll be fine. And that was before he even knew I drive a 3-wheel motorcycle. I'm not sure what his deal was because none of that was super accurate. I was using my walker pretty much the whole first week. By the second week, like this past Monday, I did move to just using a cane during the day, and that's been fine. I do still keep the walker at my bedside at nighttime for getting up to go to the bathroom, just because we have, our bed's kind of high, and I need to use this little step stool to get up in it, and I feel like it would probably be less stable for me to try to do that at night when I'm not completely with it using just a cane. So I am still doing that. PT's been going really well. Every time the guy's here, he's like, you are doing so well. He's like, you're farther ahead than most people are after surgery, because I keep telling him, I feel like I should be further ahead. And then finally we talked one day. It was one of the earlier days that he was here. I said, like, my mom had hip replacement surgery and she was like walking without any assistance by the end of the first week. She was driving at 2 weeks. She was in... As we talked, we realized that my mom definitely had a different approach to her surgery. The anterior hip replacement, where they go in through the front, he's like, yeah, that you recover from super fast. You don't have the hip precautions afterwards. He said the thing is, it's not a common way of doing it. There's not a lot of surgeons that do it in general, I guess, and especially around here. He says, I don't know of any surgeons up in our area that do it, even like in Pittsburgh. Everybody does this posterior lateral approach. It's not the posterior approach. That's like the really old one. But he's like, yeah, there's a longer period. So I felt better after he told me that. I just wish I would have known that ahead of time too, because coupled with what the doctor had told me about, oh yeah, you'll be moving, no problem. I told the occupational therapist that the one day, because the first day she came, there wasn't a lot for her to do because, you know, I'm here with Bill. Bill was able to help me, you know, get food and get dressed and get in and out of well, actually I hadn't taken a shower at that point. But, you know, like he was able to help me with everything I needed. I think she's really handy probably for people who don't have a support system on hand all the time. That you would definitely need that. But she's like, well, I can come back in a week if you want me to, and we can look at things then. And because I was also telling her what I do for a living, and I'm like, I don't know how soon I'll be able to get back to doing any yarn work. And she's like, well, maybe you can show me what you do then. And I did, and that was helpful. And I'll talk about that in a second. But then we were talking about this motorcycle thing. I said, yeah, he said I'd be able to do a motorcycle trip mid-May. And she's like, I'm like, if you have a minute, we can go out to the garage. I can show you the bike we're talking about. So we went out there, and I was showing her, I'm like, I can't even figure out how I could feasibly get up on this bike without stressing this hip in a way. She's like, yeah, that's really going to be pushing it. So I told her what he had said about, I'll be done with the walker in 2 days, blah, blah, blah. She's like, he's enthusiastic. So I guess, it makes sense. Like, you don't want to be a surgeon who's going to tell your patient, oh my gosh, it's going to take you months to get back to any normal kind of life. Obviously, you don't want to tell people that. I wish I would have just had a little bit more of a realistic view going into this, between what he told me and between me mistakenly comparing my situation to what my mom had. And the written information that they gave me before my surgery, it was interesting and it was helpful, but it was anything but complete. I did have a nurse I could contact and ask questions, but the thing was, I didn't know what I needed to ask, honestly, until after the fact. So there's that. I've learned a lot from different videos that I've watched online, even after surgery. That's been super helpful. And I verify things like with the PT, or, when I see the doctor on Wednesday, I'll ask questions. But anyway, I do not anticipate him telling me that I will be able to drive. Excuse me, whenever I go on Wednesday, if for no other reason than I am still taking my heavy duty pain med. Not often, matter of fact, I have not had one yet today at all, and I'm feeling really good. So I'm trying not to overdo it, because the last time I had a day like this, I ended up way overdoing it and suffering for a couple of days afterwards. So I'll probably take one at bedtime, but obviously they don't want you driving if you're taking the heavy duty pain pills. I don't like taking them at this point because I'm not in a lot of pain. And I can kind of keep things under control with just like an ibuprofen during the day. Plus they make me sleepy, and I don't want to be sleepy. I want to do stuff. So, the other activity I've been doing is my taxes. That's exciting, right? I told Bill, I'm going to save all my business tax stuff to do during my recovery. So he's like, you got the taxes done yet? We need to take them to the accountant. I'm like, yeah. Okay. I had to wait until I was not foggy to do that. So anyway, so all told, things are going well. As far as what the OT was telling me about, with my work, as far as a lot of the work I do, winding yarn, self-striping, I showed her how I do that, and she suggested some modifications to make that viable. And I said, yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking too. And then we did go downstairs to the studio, and I showed her the opposite of that, the reskeining, and she's like, yeah, I don't think you should have a problem with that. It's more the bending. I have to really watch how far I bend. I'm not allowed to bend beyond 90 degrees with that hip. And I'm not allowed, lifting. They didn't tell me a specific poundage, but you have to be very careful. And it's more tolerance, what you can tolerate. But then when I was explaining what I have to do to actually dye the yarn and how heavy the pans are, she's like, yeah, it's going to be a while before you can do that. And I assumed that was going to be the case. And so it is what it is. I am recovering from a major surgery, as everybody keeps reminding me. So I'm just trying to do the best I can. Hopefully in the coming week, I might have, a couple of good days that I can get down in the studio and work a little bit on reskeining some stuff that I did dye before my surgery that I didn't have time to reskein. So then that can go in the shop eventually. I do have some stuff sitting in my office that just needs to be listed. I just haven't had the energy to do that yet. Other than that, not much else to tell you. Overall, things are positive. I'm looking forward to going to the doctor. I'm actually seeing the one PA on Wednesday, not the actual surgeon. But I am looking forward to seeing what he has to say, what might change. I know wearing the thigh high compression hose won't change because he's apparently very hardcore about wearing those for 6 weeks. And the PT also told me, yeah, he is the only surgeon in this whole entire area that requires thigh highs. He's like, every other one I've ever worked with, knee highs is all that's necessary. But if it's the worst thing that I have to deal with, whatever, you know, better than getting a blood clot, right? So anyway, I think that's everything I wanted to share with you. Probably maybe more than you needed to know. If you have any questions though about my hip surgery experience, like if you're thinking that you might go down that road, if it would be helpful to hear from somebody else, I'd be happy to answer questions. Obviously, I can only speak from my own one experience here, but oh gosh, that's the other thing. Every time like a home care person comes to the house for the first time, they're like, is this your first joint replacement? I'm like, will you please stop insinuating I might have to have another one? Which I understand. Maybe they think I've already had another one, so therefore I would have a certain body of knowledge already. I'm like, no, this is my first and hopefully my only. Hopefully. So anyway, all right, I'm gonna go. I don't know when I'll be back with you. Hopefully, you know, in a couple of weeks. Oh, well, the the make along, our yearly make along is going on, which is the Keeping It Simple make along, and the first quarter of that is ending at the end of March. I will at the next video I do, I will announce the first quarter winners. Our second quarter challenge will also start April 1st. I honestly don't remember what the second quarter challenge is off the top of my head, and I didn't think to look it up before I came on here. So I will talk about that in the next video, but like there's links to where you can find the stuff about the make along. So if you want to take part, please join in. It's never too late. It's very, very low key. So low key that the person hosting it can't even remember details about it. I don't know that that's a positive thing. Anyway. All right, guys, I'm going to go so I can do some editing here, and I'll talk to you again soon. Take care. Bye.